All right, so previously we've finished off with the y-axis or the value axis customization. In this video, we're going to be going through the x-axis or the categorical axis customization for the waterfall visual. Now, as always, within the report, you have a sample that's already pre-built for you, so you can play around with that one. But for us, during the training, we're going to open up the training view and build a visual from scratch. So first things first, add an instance of the waterfall visual, resize it, disable the background and title since we're not using those. And as for the setup, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using the full date hierarchy, but removing the quarter and the date. That's one. For the changes, I'm actually going to be using the difference. There we go. And last but not least, I'm also going to define the sequence because I want to have all the years in proper order. There we go. So opening up the formatting options, x-axis, you can see that the first setting that we can configure is actually the label orientation. By default, this is going to be sitting on horizontal, but you can also switch between vertical or 45 degrees. So based on the size of the chart, how much space do you have available, you can play around with these settings and achieve the wanted result. Now, the next thing that you can customize is going to be the max unit width and initial unit width. The maximum unit width defines how big the actual column can become, and the initial unit width defines how big the column is going to be when you first load in the chart. So for example, if you leave it on 0, that means automatic. The chart is always going to try to showcase all the columns that you have available within that particular visual. If we change it to something like, let's say 100, right? And switch between the pages because we need the visual to refresh. So in this case, you can see that instead of seeing all the years, I'm only seeing the first 5 years. That is because the initial unit width is too high to showcase everything else. If you remember the interactions, I can still, of course, fine-tune that zoom level, get all the columns in if necessary, I can zoom in for more, and so forth. But that defines the initial unit width. So going into the formatting options, what I'm also going to quickly do is open up the x-axis and put this back on 100. And I'm going to fully zoom out within the visual so I get all the columns back. Now, next thing you can customize is going to be the font styles for the labels themselves. So you can customize things like font colors, sizes, styles, and also the families. Now, the only thing that you can essentially enable here is the title. Once you enable it, you also have additional customization for it. But one thing to note here is that if you leave the title text empty, it's going to work as a bit of a breadcrumb within the visual. What I mean by this is that you can see on initial level, it's showcasing me from the fields list. If we open up here, we can see year was the first category that I use. Whereas if I click on one of the years, let's say 2016, I drill down and that becomes my new title. So essentially, you're creating a dynamic title for the x-axis. One thing to note though is that it's only going to show you the previous level. It's not going to create a multi-level system within it. Now, going back to the initial view, open up x-axis. And as I mentioned, for the titles, you also have similar font styling options as for the labels themselves. So you can customize the font colors, sizes, families, and styles. All right, that's going to be it for the x-axis customization, and I'll see you in the next video.